I've studied business success extensively and written about it many times. Entrepreneurs talk about strategy, leadership, marketing, pricing, innovation, and execution. And sure, all those things are critical. But there's another force that successful people frequently talk about, even though it rarely appears in business books or conference presentations. Athletes describe it when a game suddenly turns in their favor. Performers feel it when an audience begins leaning forward in their seats. And entrepreneurs recognize it when their business starts to take over. But first, a story. A few years ago, my speaking calendar was looking pretty empty. Searching for ways to get things moving, I came up with an idea that made me uneasy. What if I brought a harmonica onto the keynote stage? I thought it might help illustrate my points about creativity, improvisation, messaging, and finding your own voice. Right on cue, my insecurities kicked in, screaming their usual list of objections. You want to do what? You're a business speaker who speaks at serious conferences, and corporate audiences expect insight and professionalism. Pulling a harmonica out of your pocket is silly. Ironically, my calendar was barren enough that experimentation felt like a reasonable strategy. And so I stepped onto the stage, reached into my suit pocket, pulled out a harmonica, and let it rip. The reaction surprised me. People leaned forward in their chairs. Laughter filled the room. The energy shifted instantly. And what had started as a nervous experiment turned into the moment everyone remembered. Afterward, audience members came up to talk about it. Several people from that audience reached out to book me for their own events, and meeting planners began mentioning it when they recommended me. The harmonica itself did not transform my speaking business, but it was the catalyst to success. What mattered was the chain reaction it started. What mattered was the momentum. Once momentum begins to build, it becomes one of the most powerful forces for success. Momentum is important in business because early progress makes future progress easier. Small wins increase confidence, confidence increases action, and repeated action attracts opportunities, resources, and attention. Over time, your organization begins moving forward with less resistance and greater speed. In my experience working with companies around the world, progress almost always begins with the one small action that breaks inertia. Jim Collins used the metaphor of a flywheel to describe this idea in Good to Great. Imagine a massive steel disc that requires enormous effort to start moving. At first, each push feels heavy and slow. The wheel barely budges and progress seems invisible. But keep pushing and something begins to change. The wheel starts turning slowly at first, then a little faster, then faster still, until it eventually carries its own weight and your effort no longer feels like strain. Invisible becomes inevitable. This same pattern appears repeatedly in business, and across almost every story of growth and progress, three things tend to happen. The first step feels disproportionately difficult. Then early wins attract resources and allies, and eventually progress changes beliefs, fueling the next round of action. Many leaders ask how to build momentum in business, and the answer usually begins with creating small, visible wins. Harvard research analyzed nearly 12,000 employee diary entries and found that the single business motivator at the office is making progress in meaningful work. When people see forward movement, they gain energy, focus, and persistence. Implementation intention studies across 94 different experiments showed that people are far more likely to achieve goals when they define specific actions in advance and follow specific, simple plans, such as, if this happens, I will do that. Sales research shows a similar pattern. A widely cited MIT and Insight sales study reported that responding to a lead within 5 minutes can dramatically increase the likelihood of making contact compared with waiting longer. Together, these findings reveal a consistent pattern. Progress fuels motivation, action increases confidence, and speed creates opportunity. Success usually begins with movement, often sparked by small actions such as one more phone call, experiment, conversation, or decision that finally gets things moving. Once that movement begins, confidence grows, energy builds, opportunities appear, and the next step becomes easier than the one before it. Here are 3 takeaways about business momentum that you can use. Number 1, progress fuels motivation. Number 2, small wins attract attention and opportunity. And number 3, consistent action compounds into accelerating growth. When leaders create clarity, confidence, and forward movement, teams gain the energy required to push through uncertainty and build real momentum. Ultimately, momentum grows when businesses consistently focus on creating value. That is exactly what my keynote programs help organizations do. If you're planning a conference or leadership meeting and want your audience to leave energized, focused, and ready to move forward, I'd love to help you. Because once momentum begins in your business, extraordinary things start happening.